Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of How Stories Work. Today, I want to talk about building a dramatic argument. When you come into subtext and you go into the premise builder to create your story, the first thing you're asked is what kind of a story do you want to write? And by choosing the genre, you set the four through lines to create the personality of your story, which helps determine the overall structure. The second choice you make is the actual dramatic argument that is driving all the conflict in your story. And this always comes across as an argument between the two central characters, the main character and the influence character, and usually comes across in a line of dialogue that sounds like you and I are both alike. And then the other person says, "Oh, I'm nothing like you." What they're truly arguing is the crossover point between character and plot. And when you strip away all the storytelling, all the stuff that they're actually saying, what you'll find are two base motivating elements that encapsulate the argument between those two sides. The reason why those two characters argue you and I are both alike is when you look at these pairs, there is an aspect of them that is similar. Faith and disbelief are close to the same thing, but there is enough of a difference there that allows the other side to say, "Oh, we're nothing alike." And while you can come in here and choose these different elements and see how they play out in the premise, the very best way to understand these pairs is to see them in context of examples. If you come over here in story points and you go down to arguments, you'll see that I've gone through several of the example story forms in subtext and illustrated the central dramatic argument. I've organized them into the four narrative families: profound, capable, aspirational, and contemplative. And these should give you a general idea of the kind of argument that's being made. If we were to just look at the profound family, we'll see films like The Prestige, American Beauty, Sixth Sense, Inception. These have a very heavy, weighted, almost serious feeling to the arguments being made. And you'll see they're organized by the pairs. American Beauty argues actuality versus perception, while The Sixth Sense argues perception versus actuality. The only difference is that I've put the main character on the left-hand side to help correlate with the story forms, so that as you're scrolling through these, you always know that the personal point of view is the one on the left and the challenging one is on the right. So while American Beauty is arguing actuality versus perception and putting reality in the headspace of the main character, in The Sixth Sense, perception is what is driving the main character, and then the influence character is arguing for actuality. If we move into the capable family here, this first argument of accurate versus deviation, you'll see it played out in several different films with completely different genres. Here we have Elf, which is arguing accurate versus deviation. Then we have one of the story forms from The Empire Strikes Back, which is a sci-fi action film. The first season of True Detective, and that's a dark crime thriller. The comedy drama Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, that first season argues accurate versus deviation. And then another thriller, Michael Clayton, does the same thing, where the George Clooney character takes on the accurate point of view and Tom Wilkinson takes on the deviation point of view. If you really want to get to know how these pairs work together and what they actually mean, your very best approach is to sample each of these films and tune into where the different points of view are coming from, and how, when you strip away all the storytelling, all the stuff that they're saying, that it all comes down to these two basic elements. And then if you find one that really connects with you, if perhaps after watching all of these, you want to make that same argument between accurate and deviation, all you have to do is just come up here and click build this argument. What Subtxt does is it sets that first character element to the argument that you just chose. So here we have accurate. And if we come down here, we'll see that the main character is accurate and the influence character is deviation. And that way you can scroll through all the different arguments, find the one that works best for you, and then come into the premise builder. It does not set the genre to the film that you chose. This is still set to the default action adventure. And that's because regardless of the dramatic argument you're making, the personality of the story can be completely different. It could be a comedy adventure. It could be a fantasy comedy. It could be a historical drama. The personality is what colors the story on top. That's what articulates the structure of the story underneath. And then that dramatic argument is what comes up from the bottom and then completes the toroid and comes back up into the story itself. So it goes like this, where you have the personality and then the dramatic argument, and then that comes back. And those two work to encapsulate what it is you're trying to say with your story. So that's it today for how stories work. If you have any questions about building a dramatic argument, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.